Ladies and gentlemen, gather close. Let's talk about entitlement. That grand illusion, the mother of all delusions. The silent disease infecting every space it touches. There's something profoundly twisted about it. A confidence so swollen, so grotesquely inflated, it forgets reality altogether. It convinces people they're owed your respect without earning it. Owed your silence as they mock you. Owed your compliance as they tread on your dignity. It's a masquerade of control, of power, of fake royalty walking among real people, expecting the world to bow just because they believe it should. They stomp, they shout, they tear you down with casual cruelty, all while wearing that smug smile, the one that says, "You won't fight back. You're too small, too nice, too scared." And in the echo chamber of their arrogance, they hear no dissent, only applause. They wrap themselves in delusion like armor, whispering lies into their own ears. You're untouchable. You're above consequences. You are the exception. But the thing about delusions is, they only survive when unchallenged. The second someone refuses to play along, the whole fantasy starts to crack. This kind of arrogance is a poison. It's not loud at first. It's subtle. It spreads in shadows. It grows stronger in silence. It feeds on the quiet ones, the empathic ones, the people who carry the weight of others without complaint. It thrives on fear and politeness, on your hesitation to speak, to disrupt, to stand tall. And as the poison spreads, so does the ego, bigger, louder, more violent. It roars over your voice, expecting you to shrink, until you don't. But then something shifts. You stop shrinking. You stop playing along. You refuse to smile as they disrespect you. You stop laughing at the jokes that aren't funny. And that's when the illusion begins to tremble. That's when the mask they wear, this bloated, righteous ego, starts to slip. Because they were never prepared for resistance. They were never ready for someone like you to push back. They built their identity on your silence. They told themselves that your quiet meant weakness. They convinced themselves that your empathy was fear, your patience was submission. But the moment you stood your ground, the lie began to unravel. You didn't yell. You didn't throw punches. You didn't stoop to their level. You simply said, "Enough." And that one word, it cracked their entire illusion open. They thought they had you cornered, that you'd bow like all the others, that you'd fold under the pressure, that they could mold you into a shadow of yourself, silent, small, easy to control. But you refused to disappear. You refused to bend. And that's what shattered them. Because the thing they fear more than anything isn't confrontation. It's exposure. They weren't afraid of your anger. They were afraid of your awareness. They were terrified of what would happen if you saw through the lies, if you stopped blaming yourself, if you realized that the problem was never you, it was always them. That fear, that's what made them desperate. That's what made them loud. That's what drove them to try harder, push further, become even crueler. But the louder they became, the more obvious it was. They were losing control. They were unraveling. Because their power was never built on strength. It was built on your belief that they had it. And once you stopped believing, once you stopped participating in their narrative, everything they built came crashing down. They underestimated you. That was their first mistake. They thought you were fragile because you were kind. They mistook your silence for submission. But strength doesn't always scream. Sometimes, strength is the ability to stand tall while everyone tries to bury you. And you, my friend, stood tall. The more they tried to push you down, the more they revealed their desperation. The more they tried to intimidate you, the more they exposed their own weakness. Because only cowards need to break others to feel strong. Only frauds need to control others to feel in control. Real power doesn't come from domination. It comes from self-mastery. And when they met that in you, it rattled them to their core. Your resistance wasn't a rebellion. It was a revelation. You didn't just refuse to play their game, you changed the rules entirely. And suddenly, they were exposed, naked, vulnerable, small, everything they projected onto you, the weakness, the fear, the inadequacy, it all came pouring out of them like a broken dam. Now they're scrambling, aren't they? Trying to regain footing, trying to reclaim the image. But it's too late. The illusion is broken, the spell has been lifted, and the worst part for them. You didn't even need to raise your voice. You didn't need to destroy them. You simply stood in your truth, and that was enough to unravel everything. They spent so long crafting this narrative, where they were always right, always powerful, always in control. But a story built on lies will always collapse when the truth walks in. And you became that truth. You became the mirror they couldn't look away from. And in that reflection, they saw the one thing they tried hardest to avoid, their own fragility. They thought they had you. They thought they could break you and walk away victorious. But what they didn't realize is that every attempt to silence you was actually sharpening your voice. Every insult, every act of cruelty, every power play. They were just forging something inside you that could never be undone. You didn't just survive them, you transcended them. And now they are haunted. Haunted by your calm, haunted by your clarity, haunted by the reality that you didn't break, didn't scream, didn't crumble. You simply stopped giving them power. And that power, that quiet, unshakable defiance, that's what shattered their ego. It wasn't vengeance. It wasn't retaliation. It was truth. And the truth always wins in the end. Because here's the final nail in their coffin. They will never be able to rebuild what you destroyed. Not because you broke them, but because what they built was never real to begin with. It was a house of cards, and once one falls, the rest follow. Now they walk in the ruins of their own illusion. Their arrogance lies scattered on the floor like shattered glass. Their confidence, a costume that no longer fits, and no matter how hard they try, they can't unsee the truth. They can't unlearn what you've shown them. That their power was always borrowed. That their control was always fake. That their ego was their greatest weakness. But you are something else entirely. You are the calm after the storm. You are the unmovable wall that refused to break. You are the reminder that no matter how loud the lie, the truth will always echo louder. You didn't rise to destroy them. You rose to free yourself. And in doing so, you became unstoppable. And now, your presence alone unsettles them. Your silence, it's thunder. Your gaze, it's a spotlight. And every time they see you stand tall, they remember the moment they lost control. The moment they realized they weren't the giants they thought they were. They were children playing God. And you were the one who pulled the curtain back. They can pretend it didn't happen. They can act like it doesn't matter. But behind closed doors, they're unraveling. Behind the smirk is panic. Behind the arrogance is dread. Because they know the truth. And now, so do you. They'll never say it out loud. They'll never admit that your defiance broke them. But every time you walk in the room, they'll flinch a little. Every time you speak, they'll hold their breath. Because deep down, they remember. And that memory is the crack in the mirror they can't unsee. You destroyed the fantasy they were living in. And for the first time in their life, they are forced to live in the real world, with real consequences, real vulnerability, real fear. And you walk free, unapologetic, unbreakable, unbothered. Because your greatest victory wasn't in what you did to them. It was in what you reclaimed for yourself. Your voice, your power, your dignity, your truth. That's what they tried to take, and that's what they could never touch. You became the storm that washed away their empire of lies. And now, as they wander through the wreckage, trying to rebuild what was never real, you rise. You rise not as a survivor, but as a legend, and that, my friend, is how you shatter an ego.